Divided European Union states hold a migration summit to discuss a beefed-up border force proposal. How wind can be a valuable addition to the mix of the continent's power generation systems. We'll have a report. And Kenya taxi drivers create a new ride-hailing app. Africa 54 starts right now.
Good evening, I'm Esther Githui-Ewart in for Vincent Makori. This is Africa 54. We begin tonight with the European Summit on Migrations that's underway in Salzburg, Austria. There are deep divisions between member states. Brussels wants to deploy EU border guards across the external borders, but frontline member countries like Hungary want to police their own borders. We get more from Henry Ridgwell in London.
60 migrants are perilously close to drowning, their inflatable boat slowly sinking beneath the waves. As Spanish rescue crews reach the dinghy, the migrants scream that they cannot swim. All the migrants were eventually saved in the operation Saturday. The United Nations says close to 35,000 migrants have arrived in Spain so far this year. The route now accounts for more than half of all illegal crossings into the European Union. Overall, migrant numbers into the EU have fallen sharply, down 40% over the past 12 months. But migration continues to dominate EU policy debate. Before an EU summit Wednesday in Salzburg, host Austrian Chancellor Sebastian Kurz called for an enhanced role for the EU border agency Frontex across the bloc's external frontiers.
To secure our external borders, the frontline countries of the European Union need our support, they need our solidarity, but on the other hand, they also have to accept the support and the help of the European Union.
That was a thinly veiled message for frontline states, including Italy and Hungary, whose governments have repeatedly blamed the European Union for the migrant crisis. Hungary's Prime Minister offered a blunt response Monday.
We are better at border protection than anyone else in Brussels or some international organization. Therefore, we will not give up the right to protect our borders.
Even within Europe's political alliances on the right and left, there are growing divisions over migration.
The summit will most likely again be portrayed as the battle between, on the one hand, the progressives who want to keep Europe open, who want to continue to help asylum seekers, and on the other hand, the hardliners, the populists who want to close Europe down and create a fortress Europe. But in the end, the division isn't that clear-cut.
At London's insistence, Britain's exit from the European Union, just 6 months away, will also be discussed in Salzburg. Many analysts say Brussels wields the stronger hand.
The question for the EU is obviously how far can they push the United Kingdom? At what point will they have to compromise simply because the alternative to the deal proposed by May or to her way of negotiating, how much worse would be a no-deal scenario?
The International Monetary Fund warned Monday such a no-deal exit would entail, in its words, substantial costs for Britain's economy. Henry Ridgwell for VOA News, London.
The Ugandan government on Wednesday banned rallies to welcome popular lawmaker Robert Kyagulanyi home on Thursday. Kyagulanyi, also known as Bobi Wine, is a prominent opponent of President Yoweri Museveni. He has been in the United States receiving treatment for injuries he says were sustained during torture sessions by government security forces while he was in detention. The homecoming of Bobi Wine could present a significant challenge to Museveni, who has ruled since 1986. Wine, 36, has attracted a large youth following through songs critical of Museveni. His prominence soared due to an incident in August in which his driver was shot dead and he was detained and charged with treason over what authorities say was the stoning of Museveni's motorcade. Wine said in a tweet Wednesday he was headed home. Police say they have received information that his supporters plan to stage rallies and processions upon his return, but he had not sought permission. Police released a statement saying any such rallies would be unlawful. Wine has pleaded not guilty to treason charges. The International Criminal Court at The Hague on Tuesday began hearing the defense of former Lord's Resistance Army commander Dominic Ongwen, who is accused of systematically killing civilians, among other crimes. Ongwen is a former child soldier who rose through the ranks of Joseph Konyi's rebel group. He faces 70 counts of war crimes and crimes against humanity. Joseph Kony was indicted by the court in 2005 and remains one of the world's most notorious fugitives from justice. Several other indicted members of the group, which rose against Ugandan President Yoweri Museveni in the late 1980s, are believed to be dead. Ongwen's defense counsel, Crispus Ayena Odongo, argued that Ongwen was not able to act independently of the LRA, whose control he was made to live under, adhere to the strict edicts of the rebel group, or die. Now to Nigeria, where Islamist militants appear to have the upper hand in recent weeks, killing hundreds of government soldiers in attacks in the northeast, according to security and military sources. This latest onslaught is forcing a turnaround in the course of the insurgency, which the Nigerian government frequently claims it has defeated. Security and military sources say government forces in the northeast are fatigued, ill-equipped, and have reached their breaking point. According to one security source, speaking on condition of anonymity, government troops are running out of weapons, ammunition, and basic equipment. This setback in the war against the Islamic State in West Africa and the Boko Haram insurgency, from which it split in 2016, comes as President Muhammadu Buhari seeks a second term in elections set for February. Buhari rose to power in 2015 on a promise to defeat Boko Haram. Now, once again, security concerns are emerging as a main campaign issue. Now, big swaths of sub-Saharan Africa lack electricity. Governments and communities are examining a variety of solutions. One of them is wind power. In this final segment of Empowering Africa, VOA senior analyst Jeffrey Young looks at how wind can be a valuable addition to the mix of power generation systems.
For centuries, the wind has moved ships across oceans and pumped water to farm fields. Now, wind is turning on the lights in a growing number of places in sub-Saharan Africa, where electrical towers and wires have not yet reached. World Resources Institute Senior Associate Lily Ordano says this is an urgent task.
Even though electrification is being pursued by all countries aggressively, by 2030, we still will have about 600 million people without access in sub-Saharan Africa.
Many African states are increasing capacity by building more coal power plants, hydroelectric dams, and other large sources. But some experts say it is proving practical to mix those systems and renewable energy to bring power to small areas the grid won't reach for a long time. Tony Tiu is the Chief Executive Officer of RenewablesinAfrica.com. Via Skype, he identifies some of the regions in Africa ideally suited to take advantage of the wind.
Ethiopia, Kenya, all the way down to Tanzania. So that's another good area. And finally, we have the southern part of the continent, that's South Africa and the likes of Namibia.
Conventional wind turbines are huge, some nearly 70 meters tall with blades more than 35 meters long. They usually are installed in groups of 6 or more, and wind power farms can cost millions of dollars, requiring state or corporate funds. But the fuel is free. Again, via Skype, Tony Tiu.
Yes, you're spending a lot of money up front to build those farms, but for the maintenance point of view and also for the operational point of view, there's barely anything compared to fossil fuel.
Large wind farms plug into a national grid, but what about powering small villages? Cyclone Hybrid Technologies has one possible solution for them. CEO Tommy Kumalo explains via Skype.
Our hybrid systems have wind and our combination of wind and solar. In the times when you don't have much wind, but you have solar, you can still be generating energy from the solar, and vice versa.
Kumalo says these hybrid systems include battery storage, so there's constant electricity for homes and businesses, which can provide economic opportunity in isolated areas. Jeffrey Young, VOA News, Washington.
Zimbabwean opposition lawmakers walked out of President Emmerson Mnangagwa's State of the Nation address to Parliament on Tuesday, signaling their lingering bitterness after losing a disputed July 30th presidential and parliamentary election. Members of Parliament from the Movement for Democratic Change Party, which is led by unsuccessful presidential candidate Nelson Chamisa, heckled Mnangagwa when he started reading his speech before walking out. Chamisa, who is not a member of Parliament and lost a court challenge to Mnangagwa's win last month, still maintains that he was cheated of victory by the Electoral Board and says the 76-year-old president lacks legitimacy. Here's a reaction from the chairperson of the MDC party, Tabitha Kumalo, and some Harare residents.
We are saying Mnangagwa is illegitimate. And we want him to prove to us how many votes he garnered. And there is the issue of us dealing with the issue of the stolen elections. We cannot sit there and be addressed by a person who does not even respect the rule of law.
For us as Zimbabwean youth, we are expecting a lot of changes from the new president. You see, there are no jobs in Zimbabwe, crash crisis, so we're expecting ED, the new president, to improve on that.
It is my hope as a young person that the MPs will stick to business and will make sure that the laws that are supposed to be aligned to the 2013 Constitution are fully done and people move away from cheap politicking and insults in the parliamentary sessions.
President Mnangagwa, who came to power in November after Robert Mugabe was removed in a de facto coup, faces the huge task of fixing an economy afflicted by high unemployment and foreign currency shortages. South Africa's highest court on Tuesday allowed the private use of marijuana, upholding a lower court's ruling that found the criminalization of cannabis unconstitutional. Activists, who include members of the Rastafarian movement and traditional healers, greeted the ruling with loud applause. They have held marches over the years to demand that the law be changed to allow people to smoke dagga, as it's known in South Africa. Several government departments, including the Health and Justice Ministries, oppose its legalization and warn of harmful effects. But in a unanimous judgment read by Deputy Chief Justice, the Constitutional Court decriminalized home consumption, saying the use of cannabis must be for the personal consumption of an adult. The ruling also approved growing marijuana for personal consumption. The Rastafarian Gareth Prince and the Rastafarian group, led by former leader of Dagga, Jeremy Acton, brought forward the case asking the High Court to allow the use of marijuana at home. We want to know what you think about Africa 54 and the stories we cover. Join the conversation on Facebook. The address is Africa 54. We're also streaming our show live on Facebook, so check us out and share our show with your friends. Still ahead on Africa 54, Kenya taxi drivers create a new ride-hailing app. But first, a look at Wednesday's headlines.
By the current outbreak of waterborne diseases such as cholera and typhoid.
In Kenya, a new taxi-hailing app developed by local taxi drivers is in its 4th month of operation in Nairobi. Dubbed Beba Beba by the Drivers and Partners Association of Kenya, it was created to compete with Uber and other ride-hailing apps. Rael Ambur reports from Nairobi.
In Nairobi's very competitive taxi scene, drivers complain they are being exploited by the practices of corporate firms that own digital taxi apps. But the creators of one taxi app called Beba Beba hopes to address their grievances and gain leverage in the local market. Simon Juguna heads the group representing drivers.
We reached a point sometimes last year, December, where we felt we are more of complaining people rather than seeking solutions. So that's when we came up together, because some of us have been very active online in terms of engaging others and raising critical issues about the industry. So we realized we cannot keep on complaining forever.
Foreign-owned ride-hailing services have been accused of charging low rates to their clients while imposing high commissions on drivers. Uber currently charges a 25% commission to drivers on each ride, while apps like Taxify and others charge between 15 to 20%. Beba Beba charges a 15% commission, but the driver and the vehicle owner get to keep a portion of that fee. Also, the fares on Beba Beba are slightly higher, ensuring the drivers will have more left over. Olelelei is a Beba Beba driver.
Beba Beba have favorable rates for drivers, and it also considers into consideration their riders, that is customers. At the same time, Beba Beba is providing a welfare for us drivers.
Juguna says economic empowerment is a priority for his group's members.
Something else that Beba Beba will always do is we will have those what we call bureaucracies in terms of doing anything. If there is an issue, we just need to call the stakeholders. That's our drivers and partners. They can make the decision, and right there it is implemented. But you realize in other companies, they have to, some of them tell us they want to call somewhere outside the country. So we don't have to have those bureaucracies.
Shivachi Muleji, Taxify's regional manager, defends his company's pricing.
Just the fact that we take a lower commission already affirms to the fact that driver earnings is a very strong principle in the way we operate. Now, having said that, is also the reality of, we have to sustain a business. We have to have a team that supports drivers. We have to have a team that trains these drivers, that gives them support when they have issues that they need to be resolved.
Currently, there are 3,000 taxis registered on the Beba Beba platform, about half the number of DPAC's members. Rael Ombor for VOA News, Nairobi.
A new bakery opened here in Washington late last year and has a unique approach to baking, using whole grains grown locally and milled on site. As Faiza El Masri tells us, Selous is the culmination of a journey for a young man who started out as a musician and became a baker. VOA's Faith Lapidus narrates.
The newest addition to the bread baking scene in Washington, D.C. is Selous. The word means majestic bird in the West African language Mandinka. Selous was inspired by a trip to Senegal by bakery co-author Jonathan Bethany more than 15 years ago. The music student went to learn West African drumming, but became more interested in working with local farmers. He wanted to help villagers who were struggling for their next meal. When he came back to the U.S., he started working in restaurants and discovered a passion for baking. His main ingredients, the grains, are freshly harvested from local farms.
We use about 20 different varieties of grains, and that's all organic.
Bethany grinds all of his wheat on site, the only bakery in Washington that does that.
I really like the freshness that milling your own grains brings to the aroma and the flavor of the bread.
Bethany's unique approach to bread making caught the attention of Sam Fromartz, author of a book aptly titled In Search of the Perfect Loaf. He says knowing how to mill and knowing which grains to use is what gives each type of bread its unique texture and taste.
So Jonathan, in a sense, is adjusting to each batch of grain that he mills. One type of flour from a particular grain might ferment really quickly. Another may take much longer. One might be really appropriate for, say, a baguette like this, and another type of flour might not be appropriate for that. So he's kind of mixing and matching and playing with his ingredients. So it adds another layer to the process.
Selu is one of just a few bakeries in the nation that sells 100% whole wheat sourdough bread, and its pastry products are also made from whole grains and contain no refined white sugar. Bethany is able to do that by surrounding himself with like-minded people, a pastry chef willing to experiment with non-traditional ingredients, and a supportive wife, a teacher and yoga instructor who became his business partner.
It's a very rewarding opportunity for me to get to meet all kinds of great people walking in through the door and working with our staff and working with the farmers that we work with on a regular basis.
Selu's breads are nutritious, rich in natural minerals, vitamins, and essential acids. But it's the taste that brings customers back.
It has so many things going on at once, like especially the bread. When you bite in, the crust is crispy, but the inside has kind of, it has a bounce and a texture.
Bethany forms each loaf by hand, feeding them one by one into a wood-fired oven. Each loaf takes about 36 hours from start to finish, a long, involved process that requires commitment and heart. But his customers say the results are worth waiting for. For writer Faiza El Masri, I'm Faith Lapidus, VOA News.
Welcome back to Africa 54. Here's what's trending. Scared of spiders? Afraid to fly? Virtual reality therapy is helping people with phobias like fear of heights by gradually exposing them to their greatest terrors. The technology is now reaching the mainstream after 20 years of research. Equipment is lighter and more affordable. Tech advances are spilling over from the gaming industry to help people fight fears of flying, heights, spiders, and dogs. The surge in products is bringing virtual reality to more therapists' offices. Experts predict people with mild phobias will one day be able to treat themselves successfully at home. Next up, could this be the car of the future? Toyota and its group companies have invested $375,000 in Japanese startup Cultivator to develop a flying car. The hope is to fly up and light the torch at the 2020 Tokyo Olympics. But it's unclear if it will meet that goal. At a demonstration last year, the device crashed after it elevated to about the eye level, and a video of a more recent demonstration of an unmanned version suggests it's now flying more stably, though it's being tested indoors while chained, so it won't fly away. And finally, new technologies and smart gadgets are on display at the site of the 12th Summer Davos Forum in northern China. Among the exhibits drawing crowds are human voice analysis system and a bionic camera created by researchers from Carnegie Mellon University in the US. It can analyze a person's health condition and characters just through their voices without aid of any cameras. Then there's the bionic camera with 1,000 megapixels. It was made mimicking the eyes of an insect commonly used in a city's security surveillance. And that's what's trending today. Now, in Baltimore, Maryland, a free after-school music program called All Kids is being used as an instrument of change for children in underprivileged neighborhoods. In the past 10 years, more than 1,300 children have received free music lessons and free instruments, from flutes, trumpets to violins. The program, sponsored by the Baltimore Symphony Orchestra, aims to create social change in a city where about 40% of the population live in poverty. VOA's Deborah Block followed one teenage violinist who says All Kids is giving her more opportunities than she ever imagined.
Here at the Seed School in Baltimore, 15-year-old Nima Robinson concentrates on a piece of classical music. For the past 4 years, Nima has been taking free after-school group violin lessons through Orchids.
It makes me feel happy because I know like I can do different styles.
Her teacher, Arum Kim, grew up in Korea and studied violin at the prestigious Peabody Institute in Baltimore. Kim says Nima's determination has helped make her a top student.
It's given someone like Nima the confidence and practice to be in front of people, to have a skill set that you can be proud of.
Nima's musical journey started when she and her mother, Susan Johnson, watched a concert in Baltimore that showcased orchids, not knowing that one day Nima would be on stage herself with the mostly African-American group.
And I'm elbowing Nima and I'm going, that's what you should be doing.
Nima had a hard start in life with both parents in prison. As a result, Johnson became both guardian and mother to her.
She's helped me a lot. She's my #1 supporter. She fusses at me to practice. She pushes me. And like, if it wasn't for my mom, I don't think I would like really be this good in playing.
Orchids has been instrumental in guiding many students, some from troublesome backgrounds, by providing a place where the children feel respected and safe.
Some of the students come in to the class, into the group setting, with the baggage from all day long. That could be poverty, that could be trouble at home. It's helpful when I learn about their families.
Aside from the camaraderie and encouragement that Orchids provides, Nima also enjoys performing.
I like seeing like the crowd, like the audience like come out and just like the end just clap and just stand up. That just makes my day.
Thanks to her free violin lessons, Nima was accepted into the Baltimore School for the Arts, where she now studies music. She hopes to earn a college degree in music so she can teach other black children like herself how to live their lives on a high note.
It doesn't matter what race you are. You can play music. If it's your passion, it's your passion.
Deborah Block, VOA News, Baltimore.
And that's our show for today. Be sure to watch Africa 54 on our website at voaafrica.com. For more news, tune in to VOA's evening radio show, Africa News Tonight, at 1800 UTC, and in the mornings to Daybreak Africa between 0300 and 0600 UTC, Monday through Friday. Thanks for watching, and good night from Washington.
Welcome to English in a Minute. A lot of American English idioms refer to parts of the body.
Get off on the wrong foot.
Are Anna and Jonathan having trouble learning a dance? How did it go meeting your girlfriend's family?
Well, it was interesting. First, I was really late.
Oh, Jonathan.
Yeah, and then at dinner, I spilled my water all over